Today we're going to be hand making or hand recycling paper using a blender, a big plastic tub, a lot of water, and a mold and decal system. Here's the large plastic tub, which is actually the storage tub that I use to put all of the paper making supplies in when I'm done. You can see that I picked up the bell jar for a blender here. I'm going to reach down and grab some of the water, which already has some paper pulp in it. I've been pulping this for a little while, but only about 10 minutes actually. I'm going to demonstrate now how to make paper pulp quickly using paper scraps and a blender. First we put the water on the bottom in the blender. That's important so that we don't bind the blades too much. And then we grab a big wad of scrapped up paper. You can tear it into little shreds, or this came out of the paper shredder. Make sure your lid is on so you don't spray everything. And then we're going to start this on a low setting so that we have basically a very strong motor going. It's sort of like the transmission in a car. You want to start low and you want to use the stronger gears to grind it up first, and then we go higher and higher and faster and faster. The water in the blender is highly saturated with the pulp, and I'm going to pour it back into the vat. The depth of my vat is about 3 times the depth of my mold and decal system, which is about 5 inches here. I could certainly have it deeper if I wanted to, but I can't have it much more shallow. Now this is the mold and decal system, and you'll see that there is a frame here. This one is hinged, not all of them are, and this part is the mold. It makes a nice rectangle. There's nothing inside the rectangle. On the other side, you will see that there is a screen inside this rectangle, and that screen is on the upside of the rectangle. If you use it with it on the downside of the rectangle, we will have to start over from scratch because it will not come out. Now you'll notice that I'm placing another screen on top of that screen. This is going to make it much easier to work with the paper. Do not forget this second screen. There are several of them laying out, and when I purchased this system, it came with extra screens, and that's what I'm using. I sandwiched them together so that one is inside the other. Now I'm going to stir the pulp and make sure that it is free floating inside the liquid. I'm now going to pull a page or a piece of paper out of this vat by going down to the bottom as quickly as I can, letting all of the aqueous solution with the pulp in it swirl around, and then gently from the bottom pull straight up and let the water drip out. This is a piece of paper, but it is very, very wet and very, very weak at this point, so I want to let a lot of the water drip out. Once the dripping slows, I'm going to move it someplace else for it to drip some more, maybe a sink, or in this case I'm going to use another tub, and I'm going to place it over top of that so it has something to drip into. And then I'm going to remove the mold from the top of the decal so that I can press some of the water out. Now it's important that we find the hinges and we make sure that we keep the paper over top of what it's dripping into to try to keep all of the water that we can inside that tub. We can dump that water back in the vat later. So find the hinges and then we open it up. Now I'm going to take a piece of felt, which is basically a cheap towel in this case, and I'm going to gently place it on top of this. When I say gently, I mean gently. If you press too hard, you will tear it. If you press too hard, you will break the mold and decal. Neither of those is a good option. So you can see that I'm just sort of patting it down and letting it soak up a little bit of the water, and as you do, you will probably hear water dripping through because you're literally pressing the water very gently out of the paper. This is going to be the drying of the paper, and it's going to take quite a while, and you can see I got quite a bit of water out of that, and I will get more and more as I go along. I'm going to gently, gently pat this down several times. When I say several, I mean at least 5, probably closer to 10, and it needs to be gentle while it's on the decal. You don't want to press through that screen, which is actually fairly fragile. The paper itself is also very fragile, so if after pressing this down gently and you start to pull it up and you see it starting to tear, stop. Find a different angle, a different corner to pick up that piece of felt from, because you don't want to tear the paper at this point, and it is very easy to do so. While I'm doing this, I'm going to give one more footnote about the paper pulp. Some people will add a binder to their pulp, and that's fine. A little fabric starch or glue some people use. I don't tend to do that because I tend to use paper that's already been made into paper before and therefore already has binder in it. It's now dry enough for me to move. I'm going to close up the mold here on top and move it over to a different station so that somebody else can use the area that I was using. And I'm going to take it over to a flat table. And then I'm going to open it up again. This way I can remove the screen from the inside that I placed in there at the beginning. I'm going to keep this screen, and the paper is going to be held together by it as I place it on the table, so the screen side goes down. Now I have the mold and decal, and I'm going to return it back to where it came from so that someone else can use it. There are more screens that can be placed within that. I'm going to return to this, and I'm going to use that felt, that cheap towel, and I'm going to press more water out of it. And this time it's not going to press through as much as it's going to be soaked up by that towel. So here I'm pressing, pressing, pressing. I can press straight down pretty hard. I cannot move back and forth, it will still tear. And you can see that I'm getting quite a bit of water out of this as I go. And the idea is to do this until you get very little to any water out of it. You blot it, you wring it, you blot it, you wring it, you blot it, you wring it. And once again, if for some reason it appears that the paper is tearing when you pull it up, find a different angle. But you will find that it will get drier and drier and stronger. Will it be dry when you're done? No, but it will be thin and it will be stronger than it was when it had all of that water in it. Many people making paper do not use this second screen. They do everything on the mold and decal. That makes it much more difficult, I find. So I always look for extra screens with my mold and decal systems. I'm going to, at this point, intentionally speed this part up because it will take a while and you don't need to sit through all of it, but you should see the end result. So here is what the paper looks like, still on the screen. We're going to take it over to dry. And you can take it to a drying rack, or in this case I'm going to take it to a towel. And I'm going to place it screen side up now. It's important that I do not press it down, I just lay it gently. Now I'm going to peel that screen off of the paper. Don't leave the screen on the paper, somebody else will need to use that screen. So we're peeling it off and we're leaving it there to dry. This screen then gets returned back to the mold and decal system that it came from. There are extra screens, but they should go back to the same tables so that other people can use them there. I'm putting this screen back inside the original mold and decal. I'm now going to label the paper that I made with my name. I put it on a couple of small pieces of paper and I'm just going to press it into the corner. It will stay stuck there until I choose to remove it. I just showed you how to create a flat piece of paper. Now I'm going to show you how to use a mold. I have a piece of paper that's flat here on a screen. I have not removed it yet. And I have a mold of a face. It's made out of plastic. It's non-porous. I'm going to place the paper side down on top of that mold, and then I'm going to peel that screen off. Then I'm going to gently pat the paper over the form. I'm going to tuck little bits of it in if I need to. I need to realize that I cannot be very rough with it. I need to be very gentle when pressing it into the form. But however it dries, that paper will stay in that shape. I also know that the paper will become thinner as it dries, so all of those little wrinkles, although they will still be there, they will be less pronounced once this dries. I'm going to put it over here to dry next to the towel that the other papers are on. I also don't want to forget to put my name on my piece here so that I can find it later. Now the gray of the paper that I made is pretty standard for shredder paper, things that use a lot of black ink with just a little bit of color occasionally. You can change the color of the paper pulp by adding different colors of paper as well. Others suggest that you might use vegetable-based dyes. You can put that in the water. That often I find stains my hands quite a bit. Many are surprised by the different types of paper that you can actually recycle this way. I've done many vats full of just magazines like Time and Newsweek, and they work just fine. You wouldn't expect it with the glossy paper, but they do. The thicker the paper, the stronger it is. It holds up quite well to paint and other things that are glued or sewn through it. And I do literally mean sewn. You can use a tapestry needle or a needlepoint needle to take a heavy string or a light thread and sew things to the surface. Many glues are made for paper and work very well too. So, go make some paper.